Hello and welcome into Stuck in the Sin Bin. I'm your host, Luke Owens, and I'm joined alongside Mike McCormick and Matt Watling. Guys, we've got a packed show today, so we're going to dive right into this week's Power Rankings. And coming in at number 5, we have some new kids in town, the Colorado Avalanche. And guys, Nate McKinnon, you talk about Kerfoot on that top line. They've been lethal lately, and Rantanen comes back, returns from injury on Thursday. 50 points in 51 games this year, almost a point per game player for them. Some question marks at goalie, but I think they're going to slide into playoffs. We'll talk about that in a little while. But at number 4, moving down a bit this week, it's the Boston Bruins.
You know, it's the Boston Bruins at number 4, but I think they come out of the East. That's a little hot take. I think we all pretty much have having them beat the Lightning in the second round. And you look at this team. Brad Marchand hits 100 points. Patrice Bergeron sets a career high in points in 64 games.
Right.
And you've got
and he's old.
And yeah, I think there was a column saying that he's past his prime. Bruins have to look to trade him, and he's setting career highs. He's played very well, and then Yaroslav Halak and Tuukka Rask and Net are very solid all season long.
And coming at number 3, I didn't pick any puns for this week, but it's the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, they're pretty hot because they clinched the Western Conference, and that top line of Gaudreau, Monahan, Lindholm, they have a combined 257 points between the three of them, and Giordano having a Norris Trophy season with 74 points.
And at number 2, it's the St. Louis Blues, a new team on our list this week.
And after the All-Star break, Jordan Binnington, the rookie goaltender, basically dragged them to competency. And since now, they've been playing really well in front of him. Ryan O'Reilly, your boy, Luke, 74 points.
Any man that runs into a Tim Hortons with his car is not my boy.
74 points on the season, really one of his best seasons of his career. And Vladimir Tarasenko, 31 goals and 62 points on the year.
I guess you could say they're stuck in the Sin Binnington. And at number 1, as always, it's the Tampa Bay Lightning.
60 wins for the Lightning. They are unable to beat the all-time win record for wins in a season with 62 is the most they can get. And Nikita Kucherov has 125 points, 86 assists. He has more assists than games played.
Oh, my God.
It's crazy.
He also has a lot of good teammates that he can set up.
Yeah,
that's a
assists.
40-goal season, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. We've had the Lightning at number 1 for basically, it seems like, all year.
Yeah, but again, you look at
rightfully so, yeah.
Rightfully so, but I think we all agree that for some reason the Bruins are going to beat them.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting point that we think the Bruins are going to win the East, but you know who's not going to win the East, guys? It's been a rough season thus far for the New Jersey Devils as they now sit in 3rd to last place in the entire league. Guys, can we blame this entire lost season on injuries, or does it go beyond that?
Yeah, I think it's the lack of depth scoring. Pavel Zacha, highly touted prospect for them, only 22 points in 60 games. Drew Stafford, 13 points in 55 games. And Stefan Nason, 8 points in 40 games, only 3 goals.
Yeah, I think we could use that B word for Zacha. Bust.
Bust, yeah.
But they have been playing
100%.
a little bit better of lately as we'll look at the highlights here. But I think it goes a little bit beyond just the injuries. I mean, this is a team that really isn't that deep, and we saw that going into last season. But you know, when you go against a team like the Sabres, obviously you're gonna look good. But you know, we'll see how next season goes when they get healthy. But a couple of guys leaving for free agency as well, so it's gonna be an interesting offseason for New Jersey.
Yeah, you look at this team; they have 329 man games lost due to injury, and that's a lot. But you look at this team, and they're not good.
Yeah,
defensively, they're very soft. They have no real top pair caliber defense. You look at Andy Green and Damon Severson are their top defensive pair. No one really to call home about. Will Butcher, probably their best defenseman, and he's an offensive guy. And you look at the offense itself, Travis Zajac is their second-line center.
Yeah.
He's like 94 years old.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Drew Stafford was even on the Devils, I learned that. Yeah. When I learned that, I was like, Drew Stafford's still in the NHL. Good for him. But there's just a lot of issues with this team.
I mean, the injuries to Hall and Palmieri and a lot of other players, and was it 13 of their starters or something like that?
It was bad.
I mean, that's not going to help your team, but I feel like it's an all-around effort with it goes from the goaltending all the way to the coaching. It's an all-around team loss and team effort for how bad of a season they're having.
Yeah, and you look at the coaching staff. They just got re-signed or extended for a little bit. It's a good coaching staff. I like John Hines. But you look at this team, and I think it's more of a player issue, personnel issue. Because you look at the offense, there's no one there.
Yeah.
It's Taylor Hall, Palmieri's okay, and then it's everybody else, and they're not producing any offense.
Yeah, I mean, you can only coach to a certain extent if you don't have the players out there in front. And, you know, we talked they're 3rd to last in the NHL. And, Mike, I know you've been excited about a lot of prospects, but there could be some guys that could fit in nicely next year. They're going to get a good draft pick.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think they'll get somewhere obviously within the top 5 with the way they've been playing, and I think regardless of where they land, they're going to get that bona fide elite level player that this team really needs, and I think they should start on defense for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Bowen Byram maybe they can go for, but they really need to draft heavy.
Do you think a good draft could get them into the playoffs next season?
No, I think this team is
a couple years away.
Yeah, a couple
Yeah, I
years
agree
away.
with that,
100%.
It definitely could be a lost cause, and that is all the time we have for now. But when we come back, we'll be discussing some more rebuilds in the Rangers and Sabres. Don't turn that dial. You're watching Stuck in the Sin Bin on WTOP 10.
The second I got on the campus, I knew Oswego was the place to go.
There's a place for everybody at Oswego.
This school just opens the world to you. Have the opportunity to explore and to learn so many different things, not only about yourself, but the people around you and the world.
It definitely is about the student. I felt it to be very about me. Now that I'm here, I can't imagine myself anywhere else.
Everybody can make something, because I think everyone has a spark of creativity, and the reason that I have to keep making is because I don't think my life would be as fulfilling without it. If you make things yourself, that means you're not cowering in fear. You're out there taking chances. That, I think, is my way of saying I love you to the world. All right, now I want to hear why you make.
Share your own Why I Make story today. Visit whyimake.org.
Goaltender David Richey. I mean, they were. Do you think Bryce Harvey, Tommy John survivor, Nathan Eovaldi?
Welcome back to Stuck in the Sin Bin. With the regular season coming to a close, the New York Rangers are sitting at 31, 35, and 13. Mike, what do you think the Rangers need to do this offseason in order to get back to, competing next season?
Well, the draft lottery is in a week, and I think all Rangers fans should be really excited for that. That's what's really going to turn this rebuild around. I think if they get into that top 5, that'll be huge for the franchise as a whole. The team needs to take a defenseman. There's no question about that, and people are going to be like, oh, the Rangers have so many defensive prospects. They're all top 4 ceiling. They need that elite.
They need that guy,
yeah,
for sure.
like they really need to go after that. So, that's just their main objective.
Yeah, I mean, they've been tanking, and they've kind of had some struggles closing games and coming back into games, and we haven't talked about, but all those overtime losses that they suffered. And, the tank's going pretty well, but they still kind of are hovering around 500, which isn't exactly where you want to be, but they're still going to be in line to get a good draft pick. And like you said, Mike, this is a pretty deep draft class, so I think Rangers fans should definitely be excited going forward.
Right, you talk about the tank, but they have a lot of offensive talent, a lot of raw talent that seem to be more like, I want to say AHL guys, but they need to be developed. But you see here just some sloppy play. Henrik Lundqvist isn't the goaltender he once was. And I don't think they're going to be good enough. They're going to be good by the time he's still on the roster. That's the part that's the most unfortunate. Is a guy like him pretty much probably not going to win a cup.
Yeah, the goaltending is going to be a little weird to see in the next 2 years. I mean, they have Shesterkin from the KHL, so we'll see how Lundqvist's track goes, or what path he's going to take. If he's going to retire early, or if Georgiev's going to take that #1 role for next season. So I'm kind of interested to see what moves they'll make this offseason. I don't know exactly what they're really going to be going for. I think they're going to go step by step the draft, and they're going to look at free agency, maybe go after Panarin. I don't think they will, but we'll have to see what this team really does in the coming weeks.
Right, and you talk about free agency, $17 million in cap space.
It's a lot.
You could sign, realistically, you could probably sign Carlson and Panarin. I don't think they do. I don't think it's necessary. I think you want to slow it down, really create this team the right way. And we were talking before the show, Mike, Adam Fox is a guy that's not going to sign with Carolina, and he's linked to the Rangers. So he'll be a free agent coming out of college this year. And he's a defenseman. I compared him to Nick Leddy. You were talking more about a guy like
John Klingberg.
As well. So this is a guy, good first pass, shifty, a power play specialist, and he could be really good for this Rangers defense.
100%.
And moving downstate a bit, the Buffalo Sabres have been awful as of late. 1-8-1 in their last 10. Morale seems to be low, and with Jeff Skinner hitting the free agency market this offseason, should he be the Sabres' top priority?
I think you need to have Skinner on your team next year. He must be signed. He can play with Jack Eichel. He can play throughout the lineup. You need more skilled wingers on the Sabres like him. So I think if they lock down Jeff Skinner, that'll be huge for this team because they still need more pieces to be a playoff caliber team. And Jeff Skinner, if they lose him, that sets them back a little bit.
Yeah, it really doesn't. Going into it, I wasn't sure. I was iffy on it. He's 26 years old. He's towards the beginning, middle of his prime, but he's going to command a deal worth $7 million per year for 7 years, possibly 8 if he goes to the Sabres. That puts him 33 or 34 years old, and that's a lot of money to be paying a 34-year-old. But at the same time, it's worth it. The offense really needs to make a splash, whether it be free agency or keeping a guy like Skinner, because they have no depth outside of their top 3 or 4 guys.
Yeah, and I mean, even looking at, as we're going to look here at I don't even know if I call them highlights at this point. I guess low lights. Against Columbus, who obviously is a talented team, but the Sabres just aren't scoring lately. And that's why I think Jeff Skinner is a guy that you want to hang around. But there obviously are some issues. I mean, Ullmark had a rough night in between the pipes, and obviously Columbus is a talented team, but the Sabres were scoring at a decent clip to start the year. They had those exciting pieces. You talk about Reinhart and Eichel. They're great setup men for a guy like Jeff Skinner. 38 goals this year. I just think you can't let a guy like that walk. But if you're not scoring goals and you're not really helping out your goalies, there's obviously a lot of holes to fill. But a lot of cap space to mess around with this offseason. Yeah, the good thing about their goaltending situation is that it's not really bad. It could be a lot worse. And they had that Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen from Finland. I'm surprised I got that on my first try. Yeah, that's a tongue twister. I always leave all the hockey names to Mike or Matt. I'm like, I'm not going to touch that one.
Yeah, I think their goaltending is going to look good down the road. So this team just needs time. It needs time, and I mean, I don't think Phil Hasley has much time as we transition.
Yeah. What do you think, Luke?
We'll see how it goes. I think they'll probably keep him on a tight leash, but looking at a guy like Carter Hutton, I think the Sabres thought he was going to be a #1 goaltender.
Yeah. And but when does that work out when you take a backup and throw him in 60-plus games and he develops into a starter?
Exactly.
It never happens.
That's why I'm saying I don't know why the Sabres
expected with a defense
that.
Like this. You saw in the last play especially, they were lazy, they were sloppy. No one got to that back post defensively. How do you score on a wraparound like that when there's a guy like a foot or two away? He's got to dive out for it and make the play.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the biggest problems, that the Sabres were expecting Carter Hutton to kind of slide in that role.
Yeah, he had an insane backup season for St. Louis, and they were just really hoping the world for him.
And I know I probably sound like the typical Sabres analyst, but it really has been, since Ryan Miller, who's stepped up in that spot, and it really hasn't been anyone. So I'll be interested to see if any of those young goaltenders can step up. But that will wrap up the Rangers and Sabres. But when we come back, you'll see who the guys think will clinch those final couple playoff spots down the stretch. You're watching Stuck in the Sin Bin on WTOP Time.
We believe in patriotism. We believe in our country. For 100 years, veterans have been impacting our nation through the American Legion. Learn more at legion.org/webelieve.
It's back and better than ever. One student can win up to $25 in cash. All on Oswego's favorite game show, Spin to Win! Every Sunday night at 9, only on WTOP 10 TV.
Welcome back to Stuck in the Sin Bin. With just 2 games remaining, the playoffs are just around the corner. But which teams will make it in? Let's start in the Eastern Conference. The Pittsburgh Penguins currently sit at 97 points and are in 3rd place in the Metropolitan Division, with the Hurricanes trailing them by 2 points and the Islanders leading them by 2 points. So guys, where will the Penguins land in the standings when it's all said and done?
You know, I think at the end of the day, they're going to be in the 3rd seed in the Metropolitan. You look at where they are. You're playing winnable games in Detroit and the Rangers, but I don't think they catch the Islanders. I think the Islanders need one more win to clinch. But you look at this team, Evgeny Malkin's returning for playoffs, Chris Letang's healthy, Matt Murray's playing a lot better than he was earlier to start the season. So this is a team that you're always worried about. They're a team that can always make a run with the talent they have. And I think if Malkin gets hot like he was earlier in the season, this could be a dangerous team.
Yeah, I think that depth all around in Pittsburgh is just way too good to fall so far down as to like a second wild card spot. Pittsburgh's just that good of a team, and like you mentioned, Malkin coming back at center depth, Carolina can't match that, and I think Pittsburgh's going to finish this season strong. They have the better goaltending. They're gonna stay in that 3rd wild card or 3rd Metropolitan spot.
I think it'll also be interesting if they do stay in that 3rd wild card spot, or Metropolitan spot, and they end up playing the Islanders. I think, Matt, the Coliseum could be a huge factor in that series. If the Islanders are at home, that's a whole different team. So that could be something interesting to watch in terms of standings.
Yeah, for sure. You look at their record at home and at the Coliseum, it's so much better than it is on the road or at the Barclays Center. And you see how they play in front of the home crowd. You see how the 4th line plays especially. They feed off the crowd so well, and I think this is going to be like the 2013 series when the Islanders played the Penguins, when you see a team like the Islanders that doesn't have a lot of talent, but they're kind of scrappy and could really give them a run for their money.
And staying in the Eastern Conference, the first wild card is currently held by the Carolina Hurricanes, with the Blue Jackets and Canadiens trailing them by just 1 point. Guys, which 2 teams will secure wild card spots this week in that Eastern Conference?
I'm going to go with the Montreal Canadiens to take that second wild card spot, because I think they're like Columbus in the fact that they really need to make the playoffs, obviously, but they don't have those high expectations like Columbus did from trading for Dzingel, Matt Duchene, and all those other assets. Montreal doesn't have all those expectations, and they have Carey Price, that great goaltender, and then they have Jonathan Drouin, Kakaniemi, and Max Domi all having great seasons, and I think this team will take that second wildcard spot.
They've really impressed me, and I've been shocked at how well they've played. But you look at the remaining schedule, Washington, Toronto, I could see them losing both these games, and then you're out of the playoff spot. So I think I would go with Carolina. They've been really hot right now.
Yeah.
And then for Columbus, again, you said they need to make the playoffs. There's just no question about it, and I think they will themselves into it.
Yeah, I think Montreal, too, has been interesting. The fan support has been really cool to see. We talked about the Coliseum. The Bell Center has been really cool, and I think hockey is better when Canadian teams are good.
Yeah, and Canada hasn't seen a Stanley Cup in a while, so I think it'd be huge for Montreal to make the playoffs and establish the Canada presence.
And now we're going to move out west. There's just one playoff spot in the conference up for grabs, and it is between the Colorado Avalanche and the Arizona Coyotes. The Coyotes would need 2 wins paired with 2 Colorado losses to squeak into the postseason. So, guys, can the Coyotes pull off a miracle?
I really don't think so. You look at Colorado, they're a really strong team. They've played great for a majority of the season. They cooled off a little bit earlier on. But you look at Arizona as a whole, they've been a really good story. They're a team that was towards the bottom basement of the league for the last couple seasons, and earlier this year even. But then you get hot goaltending from Darcy Kepper, who really made his name for himself, or reestablishing himself in this league. And they did a lot this year. I think I'd be very impressed to see what they do next season.
Yeah, I don't think Arizona's going to close out the season like Colorado will. They're overall just a better team, and Arizona they're too young. They're kind of like the Sabres. They need that growth. So I think Colorado will take it. So we'll have to say.
And guys, the Western Conference has been a bit lackluster this season. We talk about Colorado and the Coyotes, but who do you guys see as the biggest threat for a Stanley Cup run this season out of the West?
San Jose, I think. San Jose.
No, that's the one team I've written down that I say not San Jose.
Really?
Yeah, Martin Jones is just too mediocre for me. He hasn't been playing great all year, but it is wide open. So if he gets hot, you could see this team making a run. If you want a dark horse team, I love what St. Louis has been doing. Bennington's been really strong. You still have a solid backup, and I think Jake Elliott. And top to bottom, they have a really good team. And going into the season, they were a team that you could have thought would be a Western Conference finalist.
Yeah, I'm only thinking San Jose just because they have such a great blue line. But, you know, like you said, Martin Jones, it could be a rough, thing for them.
Yeah, you could call me basic, but I really like Winnipeg and Nashville. I really like what Nashville did at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I love the Wayne Simmons acquisition. But you look at a guy like Connor Hellebuck. I don't know if I trust him. Last year he was great. This year he's been a little shaky, a .913 save percentage. And the team's kind of been dragging him along similar to what Martin Jones has done.
Yeah.
And our last bit of news concerns Lord Stanley's Cup. The Washington Capitals did some interesting things with the Cup last season, led by Captain Alexander Ovechkin. We'll take a quick look at this video now of what exactly they did with the Stanley Cup. Hockey Hall of Fame Vice President and keeper of the Cup, Philip Pritchard, says that, quote, "I have nothing against keg stands. My goal is only to preserve the Stanley Cup. If they could do keg stands without grabbing the cup, that would be great," end quote. Guys, is Pritchard being a poor sport, or does he have a point here?
I think he's just being a poor sport. I mean, we never saw all these recordings of the partying. I mean, imagine what guys did in the 80s and 90s. I think people are finally seeing it for the first time, how they really celebrate Cup wins, and he's just, he's not really.
But at the same time, I get his point, because, yeah, you have 3 Stanley Cups that are in rotation, but you look at what they did with it. I mean, Ovi doing a keg stand, you're holding the top of that cup. That could easily snap off or break or whatever, and that's the one part where I see it. If you're holding onto a table, then it's fine. But if you're holding the cup, it's too flimsy. It's gonna break.
Only Matt Watling would get analytical about keg stands on the Stanley Cup. I have no problem. It was awesome with Ovi. I really think it was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there are 3 Stanley Cups like you mentioned, so there can be damages to the cup, but I think that the players are responsible enough to the point.
Not.
Right,
Come on, you're laughing.
I'm laughing saying it because I know it's not true, but I mean, we'll see.
That is all the time we have for our playoff push segment, but when we come back, we'll be discussing a playoff clinching team, the New York Islanders. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Stuck in the Sin Bin on WTOP 10.
Hey, President Stanley, what's your favorite television station?
I don't know. Hey, guys, what do you think? WTOP!
Guys, I don't feel so good. Shouldn't have had that chili for lunch.
The second I got on the campus, I knew Oswego was the place to go.
There's a place for everybody at Oswego.
This school just opens the world to you. Have the opportunity to explore and to learn so many different things, not only about yourself, but the people around you and the world.
It definitely is about the student. I felt it to be very about me. Now that I'm here, I can't imagine myself anywhere else.
How do we afford all this?
Welcome back to Stuck in the Sin Bin. The New York Islanders have clinched a playoff spot in the Eastern Conference playoffs, so we can let Matt gloat for just a moment. But Matt, getting into the nitty-gritty here, what do the Islanders need to change when the playoffs begin in order to make a run?
It's all about the scoring for me. You look at this team, they're 22nd in the NHL in scoring. And that's just insane to think that a playoff team could be that bad in terms of offensive production. And I've been very critical of them as of late just because you look at Barzal, only 62 points in 80 games played. And if you watch the video of how they played against a team like Toronto, they have no room for error. You watch how they played, and you see on the first goal that they give up, it's a really bad goal. You know, Leonard wants it back right away. You see how angry he is. And that's the type of error that this team can't have. In typical Islanders fashion, you give up the goal the first goal of a player's career, and you look at the way that they play, and here on the 2-on-1, Tavares getting the game-winning goal. I mean, that's a goal those are two goals you want back, and you can't afford to be giving up these types of goals.
Yeah, they need to increase that depth goal scoring when they go into the playoffs. Those bottom two lines, they need to contribute. I know Cizikas has, but I think the other Kyle Clutterbuck and some other of those pieces really need to help the team out.
Yeah, you know, one thing I do like about this Islanders team, though, they have 5 players on their team that have hoisted the Stanley Cup, not to mention Barry Trotz as their head coach. So I think there could be a run in this team.
They have it, and I think it's important that they get the first goal in all their games because they're not an offense that can make comebacks.
Right. Yep. And to end the show, we've talked a lot about playoff teams this season. However, we have not touched on those teams with the potential for next year. Which teams do you guys think will be in the mix next season that did not make the playoffs this year? We'll start with Mike.
Boys, I got the hottest of takes, and that is going to be that the LA Kings are making the Stanley Cup playoffs.
That is a very hot take.
That is wrong.
No,
that is wrong.
Listen to me. They still have a good team. They have depth in their lineup. Matt, I know you're going to say that they're old, that they're slow. No, dude. They are. No, dude. They faced injuries to their goaltending very early, which hurt them. So I think that they kind of got to a bad start. And they could win the draft lottery, which they could get a huge blue chip prospect for next season. So I think
it comes down to coaching. If you got a good coach, because Kovalchuk, very talented, still has a lot of points. He hasn't been playing under Willie Desjardins. So if you can get the right coaching adjustments, maybe bring up some speed, they're the second oldest team in the NHL. I don't really like the recipe for that.
Yeah, I'm definitely with Matt on that. They're too slow. They're too slow.
Dang it.
And now, Matt, let's look at your team. Let's look at your team real quick.
To no surprise of anyone, the Philadelphia Flyers. You got a full season of one Carter Hart, the Flyers savior, 16-12-1 in his NHL career, a .277 goals against, and they're very good defensively. They've got great top 6 depth. You've got Giroux playing the wing with Sean Couturier and Travis Konechny on that second line. They're a very talented team, and they had 8 starting goaltenders start a game, which is the most in NHL history this year.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. Although you were wrong, the savior of the Philadelphia Flyers is gritty, in fact.
No.
But going to my team here, this could be a little bit of a hot take, too, because this is a team that's young and they're fun, and it is the Vancouver Canucks. I really like what they're doing. I mean, you talk about Elias Pettersson. You talk about a franchise player. He is that for Vancouver this season, leading the team in points. They might need some improvement in terms of goalie play, but I think they're going to be good going forward.
Yeah, and you look at who they have. Brock Besser's another one of those guys. Him and Elias Pettersson had very similar years in the sense that I don't say they came out of nowhere, but they were not expected to be leading their team in points as rookies. They've had that. And you look at their defensive depth, I think those are a bit of the issues. But Quinn Hughes, who's coming over from Michigan, one of the best defensive prospects, shout out Dylan, loves his college hockey. But Quinn Hughes is going to step up next year especially and have a really good year.
Yep. Right, and guys, before we wrap up, it wouldn't be right if we didn't wish a very happy birthday to our director, Joe. He turns 21 today, and we thank him for being here on his birthday. As we take a look here at Joe's bio, thank you for directing just a beautiful picture there, the professional night owl, and we all hope that you have a great day, Mike. I heard he's, I'm sure he loves exactly what we did for him. But that will wrap up this week's edition of Stuck in the Sin Bin. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you back here next Wednesday for our playoff preview. For Mike McCormick and Matt Watling, I'm Luke Owen saying, have a good night.